Director General of the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, Advocate Maruleke, advisor to the Minister, the representatives and the senior officials of UNDP present with us here, our DDG Shoki, officials of the department, senior officials of the department who are with us here today, good morning. It's been a very hectic but educative week for this department, because I can just close my eyes and say from the past 2 days to today, all that which we were doing about trying to reach out and stop the menace that is in our country affects people with disabilities even more. Today, we are officially starting a journey which is not for the first time. I wouldn't call it a celebration, but an awareness campaign, which should not be from the 3rd of November to the 3rd of December. Because disability we live with every day. In fact, there are very few families talking about Americans, even in this room, who could say, I do not know anybody with disability in my own neighborhood. Many of us have disabilities that we also do not know, because our learned doctors have not said you have this. Some is because they're just obvious. When you look at the person, you say, now I know. About deaf people doing things and impressing the DG, I learned many years ago, Ambassador, COGTA, International Relations, Women, we were at a function where we saw deaf people dancing, and we joined in. It's easier to join them in dancing because they say there's nobody who understands the rhythm better than the deaf people. You want to dance? Go there. They'll teach you. Today, with modern technology, we should be able to reach out to our disabled people more. Actually, we should be knowing more, so that the thing about integration of disabled people in the so-called mainstream and do the mainstreaming does not become a challenge, but a responsibility. Our launch drum of empowering persons with disabilities through resourcefulness, sustainable and safe environments is timely. It is not only, drum is not only commemorated by South Africa, but South Africa needs to take it further. For 365 days, like we did yesterday and day before yesterday, we should not do what we hear was done in the past. Because one disabled person said to me, if God wanted all of us to look alike and walk the same way, and we all be tall or short, he would have done so. This is a diversity of creation. Disability is a diversity of creation. As a department, our approach is informed by a series of wide of consultations with the disability rights sector and government departments. It is grounded in the principle of nothing for us without us. Our department to the unique needs, our commitments to the unique needs and experience and expertise of persons with disabilities is premised on international, regional, and national frameworks, as I said earlier on. At international level, South Africa ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and its optional protocol without reservation in 2007. In 2013, Cabinet approved the Disability Rights Awareness Month, starting from the 3rd of November to the 3rd of December. It's Hasimatomo Limafelelo, but is where we heighten this awareness that we are talking about. A critical moment and a true display of political commitments was in the publishing of the white paper on the rights of persons with disabilities in December 2015. We have the necessary policy frameworks and legislation. We now need to move to implementation. Therefore, we must move forward in terms of introducing specific priorities and achievable targets to ensure the progressive realization of the rights of persons with disabilities in South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, part of today's launch includes sharing our calendar of events for DRAM. I will introduce the themes of the weekly sub-themes that will inform our interventions between the 3rd of November to the 3rd of December. This year's overall theme is shaped by the priorities of the state and introduces the midterm strategic framework targets. From the previous year to date, the department has worked on the priorities of the Presidential Working Group on Disabilities, and there has been reasonable progress on these priorities, which include capacitating the disability coordination function at the epicenter of all spheres of government. 2, accelerating domestication of the UN CRPD. This includes the ratification of domestication of all AU protocols on the rights of persons with disabilities and the Marrakesh Treaty to the ratification on access to print materials for persons with disabilities, as well as the white paper on the rights of persons with disabilities in law. Transformation and strengthening of national disability rights machinery, as well as meaningful platform for strategic and engagement and collaboration needs to be fast-tracked. The creation of the sustainable funding mechanisms for the sector to increase footprints and programs of national organizations also critical. Strengthening the extent and self-representation by persons with disabilities across strategic institutions. This includes their representation in government structures and strengthening meaningful involvement of representation of representative organizations in the design and conceptualization phase of policies and services and monitoring the process. Accelerating the pace of providing access to quality, inclusive education to children with disabilities out of school. This entails improving the strengthening of reasonable accommodation support measures for learners in both special and ordinary schools. In addition, we must advocate to mainstream persons with disabilities in ordinary schools, ensuring all learning materials are accessible, regardless of where the learner is located. Accelerating the meaningful and sustainable economic liberation of persons with disabilities. This includes reversing the trend of learnership replacing decent work opportunities, promoting SMEs development and public sector procurement, strengthening community-based independent living support services through the development of personal assistance services, along others, finding sustainable solutions on the huge backlogs in the provisioning of assistive devices. This deprives the children with disabilities from effective development and learning that reduces them and their ability to become economically active and independent. Accelerating to the right of the autonomy and the legal capacity for persons with psychological and intellectual disabilities, inclusive of Renew Mental Health Care Act, quality of care and mental health institutions developing community-based services as alternatives to institutional care. We should also be accelerating the recognition of South Africa's sign language as an official language very soon, as DG had alluded to earlier on. The progress of the priorities over the past year displays a great deal of leadership in advancing the rights of persons with disabilities. However, much more should be done and can be done working with people with disabilities. The department is in the process of developing an overarching legislation on disability rights, and as it was mentioned above, South Africa will soon ratify the protocol on the African Human People's Rights Charter for persons with disability in Africa. We are investigating the possibility of legislating these frameworks into Disability Rights Act. I call on all government departments to be involved in the process of developing the National Disability Rights Agenda as required by the midterm strategic framework targets. We need more government departments to participate in active and events during Disability Rights Awareness Month as part of their commitment to integration of persons with disabilities. As a department, we have received a list of events from other government departments on the interventions they will be facilitating during the run. We still encourage other departments that have not yet submitted their calendar to do so. Ladies and gentlemen, the current events calendar welcomes new event recommendations from all sectors, and it will be shared widely as an ongoing update. The events calendar for the month will be in line with the sub-themes that are derived from government priorities. I'll just list the ones that we have already received. Week 1, which is from the 7th to the 11th of November, National Priority 6, Social Cohesion and Safe Communities. Theme 1, resourcing the advancement of accessible communication, information, and information technology methodologies for persons with disabilities. Week 2, 14th to the 18th, National Priority 3, Education Skills and Health. Sub-theme 2, adequate resourcing and supply of economic and health-related services for the persons with disabilities. Week 3, moving from 21st to 25th of November, National Priority 6, Social Cohesion for Safer Communities. Sub-theme 3, Capacity Building on Entrepreneurship and Business Skilling for Persons with Disabilities. I was humbled by what I heard from the ambassador of Korea, that they move with their disabled people. If they are artists, they know. I mean, even if you are a able-bodied artist, you know that with age there will be some limitations. They know that, they say they know that by year this, they should be training these citizens or their citizens who were in this calling to another. And they utilize more and more of their disabled people in automotive and auto components centers, where you don't need to move, you sit and do the best and earn a living that you'll also be very proud of. I thought that was very telling. On week 6, which is the 28th to the 28th of November to the 3rd of December, National Priority 5, Social Cohesion and Safe Communities. This week will coincide with 16 days of activism against women, youth, and children campaign sub-theme. Resourcing the safe and secure provisions for access to justice for persons with disabilities. Yesterday, we concluded the Presidential Summit on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. What came out quite strongly is that women and youth and people with disabilities are the most vulnerable in our society, as we know, and are the ones that suffer most. This pandemic that even outlived COVID. We must account acceleration and amplify efforts to ensure that persons with disabilities are effectively covered in the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, particularly with the stories that we woke up this morning again from Krugersdorp. It never stops raining. May their soul rest in peace, but may the perpetrators go die in hell. Members of the media, in addition, the department, in partnership with the National School of Governance, has concluded, our department is together in partnership with the National School of Governance, have concluded a memorandum of agreement to roll out the disability inclusion training. The training will serve to improve government departments' capacity to implement the policy directives and deliverables of the white paper of the rights of persons with disabilities. The department, through the National Disability Right Machinery, is in the process of finalizing the national coordinating mechanisms to align the disability rights agenda with the policy and the legislative framework. The national disability rights machinery must be strengthened so that it's embedded in the white paper on the rights of persons with disabilities within the work of the FOSAT clusters DG. The 5th annual progress report on implementation on the white paper on rights of persons with disabilities will assist in providing measures to close the gap in the implementation of the policy and service delivery. The implementation metrics must be reviewed to simplify reporting measures, to improve and incorporate the new reporting obligations. Reporting institutions must ensure the disability inclusion in planning their annual performance plans, monitoring, evaluation, and budgeting. Reporting institutions must fast-track the implementation of the recommendations of the approved first annual report of the implementation of the MTSF disability specific indicators. The department will work with the government departments, with other government departments, to capacitate them to ensure the disability responsive budgeting, planning, and reporting happens. All government institutions must comply with the disability reporting requirements and report timelessly. Ladies and gentlemen, DRAM remains the most important period of this administration to evaluate the progress that has been made to uphold the rights of persons with disabilities. We have the laws and the policies in place. We just need to commit and collaborate on the fast tracking of the implementation. Lastly, let us advance the mandate of building inclusive and transformative society where the needs of all are handled with equal priority and equitable resourcing. I thank you.